Today we would like to talk about user experience and experience in general. Experience is something, you take your knowledge from. You have user experience in apps and development, and we're curious today to find out what experience means for us as designers and developers. Hi, my name is Marius and I'm a designer. I like to discuss topics with Nick from the creative side.
Hi, my name is Nick and I'm a software developer, a co-host with Marius of this podcast, where we talk about philosophy, psychology of two successful digital creators. Thank you for joining us today. Yeah, very interesting. I think we are losing on that with new conversational UIs, but looking depends on which tool, because I think they involve too. They need to understand how to serve it better for the users, for consumers. At the beginning, everything started, I think, many years ago with these chatbots, where you just had some chat, and that the chat maximum what it offered, it's kind of several options to pick. And when you pick, it goes to different paths.
Exactly.
And this is exactly what you mentioned. It eliminates you from the experience that you have when you interact with normal UI, with an app or with a website, where there are information presented in different shapes, in different formats than just a chat. And now I see that these conversational UIs for AI tools, they try to improve this. So they give you additionally to the chat some drawers opens at the bottom, which tries to summarize you something, put some pictures in there if necessary to give more explanation and sense.
Right.
If you are dealing with code problems, then it also opens some drawer on the side and gives you the snippets of code on the side already, and you could interact with these snippets by asking to fine-tune, to change, to explain. So I think designers are trying to dig deeper into this new field, I would say, conversational UIs, and try to figure out the way how can we solve it so the experience is more brighter for the user, so the user can really more connect with that. But from another perspective, look, you have in the normal websites or apps, you have this experience that you are used to within decade or even more years, So things are familiar. Navigation normally at the left or at the top, or in app maybe at the bottom. You see these hamburger menus if necessary. You are used to many things, how things are allocated. This information accessibility is kind of on a good level, because we and designers, everybody already became experts in that within years. And now this is very new, innovative format, let's say, how to present the information, and therefore it will take time, I believe, to make it really really good from that perspective, that it drives your emotions, that it kind of enables you to empower different senses just by reading and so.
Right.
From other perspective, look at this. Conversational UIs, especially these AIs already, they at the beginning gives you much more relation, because you feel like somebody else is on the side talking to you. Might be your virtual assistant or whoever you pretend it to be. You could even write a prompt that it could be somebody you want it to be, For example, it could be Sherlock Holmes who is talking to you, and then the AI will pretend it is. So I think already this gives you a lot of different spectrum of emotion and relationship you build with the product.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I think like the one you mentioned just now with Sherlock Holmes is great, because you watched the movies, or maybe you've also written something or read some books about it, so it's kind of a character you can relate to, which is really nice. And you mentioned before also, like if we look back, for example, when Alexa came out, I think it was one of the first that had more of a conversation with you. Siri was still okay, but then Alexa came out and everybody wanted to build something for Alexa. It should be integrated in your TV, in your notebook, in your phone, like everywhere. And like you mentioned, it kind of acts on the sense of visual, and you also hear it, audio.
Yeah.
So it also speaks to another sense now. And that I found very interesting. It's like already 10 years ago now, maybe, or like 7 or 8. But if you look at it now, things like the voice of ChatGPT or also the new from Gemini, they're very natural. So now it doesn't feel like you talk to something and say, I have a question, and then it says, oh, here are some results from the internet about what you're looking for. So the first part of the experience is okay, the thing is talking to you or the tool is talking to you. But then the
Yes.
actual experience that you have is that you're kind of frustrated because that Siri, that's the experience I have with Siri, doesn't really give me an answer. And that part I find interesting to talk about because mostly when we design experiences, we feel like we design the screen, like you said. There is a question you ask, you kind of come up with a prompt, and then you understand it and give it the answer. But then the experience happens after, right? Like you hear it and it's kind of funny. You talk to Sherlock Holmes, or it's not funny because you don't get the answer. So that I find interesting. And then there's these two senses because mostly what we do sitting in front of the screen, we can see something, we can hear something, we can type something, maybe there's some tactility, but not much else. So yeah.
I agree. Absolutely. I just think that we need a bit more time to align with this, to understand how to deliver the experience in a way that will be very natural and will be very effective for the consumers. And yeah,
Yeah.
obviously it's the same like designing websites, mobile apps. It took us a lot of years
Yes.
to come to the point where we already naturally or intuitively understand that this shall work that way and this is better to put that way and so forth.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. We are now playing with one new design at work, which will try to extend the payment form in the web app.
Interesting.
With a side. So on the side, we will put something like a summary of your payment while you are filling in the details about that. We will show you some information about the amount that you put in, and we will show at the right side of the screen some fees if they are applicable to that particular payment that you are creating now. And interesting that the designers is trying to experiment to put these control buttons to submit the payment or to sign a payment in that right side where this overview is in place. And this is very new design pattern I never seen online yet, where you have a form which you fill in the main part of your screen. So you fill in the receiver of the payment, the amount, payment reference, and many other details depend on the type of the payment. For international it's more details, for domestic it's less details, and so forth. And on the other side of the screen, like minor side of the screen, you see this card with a summary with some fees if applicable, maybe some checkboxes if you want to make it as an instant payment or something like minor things, and the control buttons to process further to the next step in general are underneath that card on the side.
Interesting.
Not underneath the main part of your page, like you would normally experience the controls to be at the bottom of the form of which you fill.
Right.
And yeah, this is something new. Not sure whether it will stick in, but I see that the experiments are done in that direction. And yeah, people try to fulfill certain needs of a customer. And in customer, in our case, a business customer needs more information on the page with less steps. So the payment or certain task within an app could be done just on one page. You could do everything. And therefore, these new ideas emerge how to improve the UX, how to change it in a way that would fit the consumer. And the same, absolutely, this is an example from my a story from real work. But the same absolutely will happen with these conversational UIs and AI. People will push forward, will experience something that never was seen before, because now look, you could copy experience from something you like now. You could copy your experience from a website you like, you want a landing page like Apple does with these video previews, and so you can replicate that for your product too, similar, technically. You see how well they do it, and so you could replicate the experience of LinkedIn posts, for example. You see how some impactful creators are using some templates or patterns for their posts, so you could put your information, your context in their shape, and replicate how they do it, how they try to catch the attention with some hook and so forth. And so you could, let's say, you could steal that and adjust to your context, your needs. But sometimes there are things that you cannot. Sometimes there are things that are still undiscovered, not yet unknown so well. And this conversational UI, I feel it's exactly that case. You are here and you have a wide opportunity where to go and how to do it. And of course, they watch each other a bit. I believe OpenAI is watching their competitors like Google or Microsoft or whoever, and they try to see how they design or try to adopt this or this kind of concept and pattern and so. But in general, you have a space to invent too. Nobody will at that moment with this new field of UX, nobody will point, but actually Facebook is doing it differently because Facebook doesn't do it at all, let's say, at the moment. So nobody can point you which is the right option, which is the right pattern that people already get used to, because there is no. And so opportunity for designers, I think, is huge working in these companies, in these kind of products that are related to AI, conversational UIs, because they could really invent something that will stick afterwards for decades.
Yeah. There's lots of interesting points you just mentioned. That's two I want to pick up. I think from the experience, it's just like having that space for designers is really cool. Like for the last few months, I've used Perplexity, the search app. It's kind of like ChatGPT, but only for search. And I think they base the search results on the ChatGPT API. So they use ChatGPT. But then the experience they have for voice search is so cool. Like you have to press the record button, then you speak. And like we humans do, we discussed last time, you make mistakes or something you say is not really right. You correct yourself. So from the one side, I think it's funny because you see what you put in. When we compare it to Google, you would have to write and you can, delete the word you didn't really say right. But if you speak, just like I do now, I make some mistakes or some things are wrong. So you see all the stuff you said and then kind of tries to understand. And it says, okay, interesting. So you want to talk about this topic. Let's see what I know. And the first interesting part is the way it reacts is really nice. Like it's very natural. Like you would talk to somebody. Right away, I already feel like, oh, this is a cool experience. I find it interesting. And then also the results are crazy because like in preparation for this call, I remembered from the Figma conference, there was this one chat conversation where one designer from Google, she talked about, how machines experience things in humans, but I couldn't remember the name. And then I tried to find it on YouTube, I tried to Google, but I couldn't figure it out. And then all I just said, I talked into Perplexity and like really only half a second later, oh, you mean this person? This is the link to the YouTube video. Do you want to watch it? And then, okay, I'm really impressed. Like, this is cool. So from that side, I think it's really nice. From the UX side, you can do a lot. And then what you mentioned, technical side, I think it must be, I don't know, but it must be quite challenging because if you look at banking, for example, that you work on, security is pretty high. Like things that people say or write, they need to be protected. You cannot just put it out there for people to learn from that data. And having a conversational UI, I think, must be pretty tough because there might be different people speaking. Somebody says something, it might be a keyword, but then they correct themselves. So I think the level of technical knowledge to build a new product, I guess, must be pretty high. Or maybe you can also use APIs, I don't know. But I would be curious to know, like, what do you think, like, compared to previous building a website and now building something like you do? How do you think about that? Yeah.
Good question. Yeah, really good question. Well, there are tools, obviously, and this is a starting point for everybody because inventing from the scratch is very difficult and very time consuming. And there are different tooling for that, and I'm certain that NVIDIA, this company, provides different SDKs that we could consume. One, for example, a bit outside of conversational UI topic, a great video SDK they provide is called Eye Contact.
Nice.
Where they can process your video, recorded video that you read from a script, and make your eyes not reading from a script, but like you were watching in the camera.
Yeah.
So they will fix your eyes where they are. So when you normally read from a script, you are moving like this.
Right.
See?
Yeah.
You are reading, right? So they can fix it, and the video will feel very natural. And I'm certain they have different things for audio too, if we are talking about processing audio on the fly and trying to answer you in a certain of UI, let's say audio UI, or not sure how it's called correctly.
Yeah.
But I'm certain that there are already tools that could be employed to use to build products on top of AI itself. So they could process probably an audio, they could fix grammar mistakes and make sure that it's correct before it's sent to some large language model, before it's sent to the API of OpenAI or any model that is used under the hood to give you an answer. And then probably that model could be also configured with a certain prompt, how it should by default reply. And then through some SDKs, this reply would be transformed into audio, and audio could be configured by different voice that you want, and then you will hear it. Actually, in Descript, that's an app I'm using sometimes to edit my short form videos. There are opportunities to train the model that they have under the hood to talk like you. So they give you an exercise, for example, here is a text, please read it like you read it for us. And they record what you read. And there are multiple ways how they process further, but at the end they give you an opportunity to fix your audio after you recorded everything. For example, you recorded a video that contains an audio, like we are now recording a podcast, for example, and we made some mistakes, or maybe we unveiled some information that is under the privacy and want to fix it, and we don't want to kind of delete the whole episode. So in this tool, in this script, you could just hover that particular, in transcription, hover that particular sentence, word, or whatever, and rewrite it by hand how you want it to be framed, and it will, with your voice, reread it.
Yeah.
Okay, and put it in a video. Will be also a very natural experience from that perspective. And this is crazy. Like, this is a combination of multiple tooling that are put in place. Audio processing, speech to text processing, using the language model AI to give you result, and so all together. So this is crazy, a lot of technology, but this Descript is a small company from US, and they are putting it all together, and not from scratch they are building. They know what to employ from which other third party, what to take from IBM, what to take from NVIDIA, what to take from other OpenAI, for example. And so to put this new experience of video editing for you, something that you never experienced before, like you would edit a Word doc, like a video. So
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's like you really look at the technology behind this. When we compare it to, let's say, 5 or 10 years ago, when we tried to build the search engine, everything had to be done by hand. We had to code everything, come up with your own solutions. And this is
incomparable.
Yeah, super interesting, because I think on the one side it saves a lot of development time. You don't have to build anything or invent it yourself. And it's very good quality already. Like the example you gave from NVIDIA, it's crazy to watch it. On the one side, it's a bit scary. When you look at the human, it's kind of too perfect, always looking at the camera like this. But on the other hand, it's a great presentation too. So coming back to the topic of experience, that's interesting, because now you say something, you've experienced something in the past. That's the way you did a transaction for your bank account. You went to the bank. Some people might remember, you had to give in the paper, give it to the person. They check it. They look at you. Ah, yeah, it's you. Okay. You do the signature, and they send the money from their PC. Long process. Then now you do online banking. Maybe you can scan a code, QR code or something, and then you have the experience you just mentioned. So it also evolves, and I see that for people it can be scary. Of course, it's something new. You don't know what's happening to your data, but it also saves you a lot of time, and then it's a much less cumbersome experience. You can just do it at home. Maybe at some point you can speak into your headphones and say, okay, I want to send this amount of money to help with the podcast to Nick and Marius, and that's it. Done.
True.
Yeah, so that would be really nice.
Very fast, very casual. Yeah, the experience are so polished, so ideal, I would say, in many cases that we go through. That it reminds me immediately a situation when somebody just went to the plane, flights in a comfortable seat. The plane offers, okay, we actually have an internet for you. Do you want to try to use it? Sure, let's do it. So cool. The internet on the sky, incredible. Wow, innovation.
Yeah.
So he jumps on, the internet kind of slows down. What the bullshit you are offering me? Already expecting the ideal experience in a new field, in a new space, So we are used to this situation of perfectionism, that everything is really good, even roads in Germany or in Austria, so thin quality, and now you get something that doesn't work even in a new setup. Let's say conversational UI doesn't answer you as you want it. You are like, they build crap, So
very good one. I think this one is very interesting and very relatable, I think, for everybody. Because, if you work on a job that's not on the screen, you have to carry something, you have to build something or do a service for a person. And I feel that very often, like also doing some construction work now, you cannot just click something and say, I put it here, done. Or, I made a mistake, I can press Command Z and go back. No, you can't do this anymore. The thing is done, you have to repair it, or you have to take it out again. It takes time. And that's a very good point you made, because, you are a service provider, not so easy, you have to go back, it's raining, you have to postpone for another day. And the other person is just writing you the email or pressing the button in the app and says, why is it not ready yet? Why is the internet so bad? Me too, like very not taking too much time, or like being very stressed out about it. And that's also the experience, right? Like we design the experience and we feel like, okay, we make the plan, this is how we do it. But then the experience is like, the internet is crap.
I agree. Look, what you just mentioned also kind of makes sense, because every coin has these two sides, right? And the experience we also have. And internet in general, if we would say that we are used to this perfect user experience, in general, I would say that it's oftentimes broken. So you probably experienced the setup. Let's go roll back like many years ago, when we started to experience internet from the perspective of Web 2.0, when we started to create something on our own. So first, the era was information. We had information, we were able to find it on the internet. That was the first stage. Probably you remember Yahoo website, which had some listing with a lot of things sorted by category. We could find some information about certain things. Or then Google emerged, that showed you an aggregation of results from websites of the information you are interested in. But then the next era stepped in, and you started to create something. You started to fill in information to the internet. And there the experience, I'm certainly you experienced such a situation, when you started to type some text, some answer, some maybe contents you create, and then when you hit submit, your session is over and you lost what you wrote.
Yes.
Certainly you had
what
that.
you're talking about,
Now, okay, this is, let's say, within a decade of years, this was fixed. Hopefully you don't lost information anymore. and the developers store it some locally, even it's not submitted to the database or so. But you probably already experienced many times such a setup that you want to make a payment of certain things. You wanted to pay for certain thing through the card payment or any other way.
Yes.
And then you submit it, the loading happens, and nothing else, and it like continues forever, and you are in this emotional experience. What now? What should I do now? Shall I stop loading it somehow, refresh the page? Will they take money and don't record that they took it?
Right.
What kind of troubles I will have further on with this experience now?
Totally.
Or any other like situations which are at least you upload, let's say, a picture from your phone which is 10 megabytes, and it uploads, and then at the middle of the screen it stays and like doesn't move. The indicator doesn't move forward, and you are like, you upload it, you have to what to do now, and you again have this broken experience. And I would, as a developer, I would say that in general, the internet is oftentimes a broken experience. And if we look at the minor users, let's say users with disabilities, then the internet is terribly broken. And whose fault is that? Whose fault is the internet is broken? And there are many people like have different opinions on that. I'm, as a creator of the internet, the one who contributes actively to creating digital products, I would say that I have personally a responsibility for that, being a developer. I don't ensure that the quality. I try to allow my management to push me down to go with the speed and avoid making sure that things really works for different edge cases. And so, that's on my shoulders too, that the internet is oftentimes broken. And I'm trying to my best actually to fix it. I'm trying my best to look at that from different perspective, because at the end I understand that I create a huge impact. And actually you don't have to work in the bank and ship a digital app that is used by 10 millions of people. No, even the small startup, even a small side gig that you are building for somebody, for yourself, or for some people that will use it, even your maybe family, you are in power to make this experience not broken. Not broken. I'm not saying even about perfectionism or something, but you are responsible to deliver to them, to ship to them something that works, something that won't make them feel like terrible.
This is
and this mindset, in my trainings, when I train developers, I try to encourage to this mindset, because this is our common responsibility, or we make a world a friendlier place, an internet a better, less broken place for everybody, because it's we who can do this, who can impact that, or we let it be as it is. And everybody here who is listening this now with us today, or you or me, experience the internet is broken, experience these emotions, especially with sensitive data. You are submitting something that is important to you, and then you are in a state that you don't know what to do further. What will happen further? Will you have a problem? Will you have money charged? Have you submitted this? Shall you send it twice? So you are in this emotional state of unknown. And I don't want you as a user of the internet be in that. And therefore, I'm, as a creative person who contributes, I'm responsible for that.
So good. I mean, like, you touched on so many points from different perspectives on this. So that's why I think experience is so important for all sides. Because just what you mentioned, let's say with the topic of the transaction, it's totally true, people who are not as skilled as us, but skilled in other things, they want to do this transaction. So last week, a friend just tried to get the Google Drive subscription to put more pictures in his drive. At some point you reach the free level and you have to pay not much. It's like €2 a month, very cheap for a lot of space. But he just tried. He opens the form, and Google, big company, right? Should be easy. He picks to be charged from his his data plan from the company carrier. Okay, option doesn't work. First error. And he's like, okay, let's try credit card. Then he tries the credit card. Also error state because his credit card is not eligible for the security online acceptance, where you open your bank account app and approve it. Okay, you can also not do this. And then we had to set up a PayPal account because you really wanted to save more pictures. So he really tried. And for me, it would have been easy. I would have just pressed the button that I know, Apple Pay, for example, and it's done. Very easy experience. So it could be the same thing that you offer, same service, but the experience is so different for different people. And the point that I really think about quite a lot, like you mentioned, disability and accessibility. And that is very much related for me to the discussion we had last time about, AI and us, like who is superior or not. And I really think it just helps us to understand better because if you now take disability, I could also say I'm disabled. So on my Mac, I've enabled also on my phone certain disability options. So for example, for hearing, I lowered the maximum volume so it doesn't really damage my ears. I made the sound a little bit more crisp so I can hear better. And then I feel like, do I feel disabled? No, not really. But it makes the product much more accessible for me. And I remember this moment a few years ago when I started to run a little bit. I noticed that my knees always hurt. I'm not trained. I don't know what to do. So I go to the orthopedist. I don't know what's called in English, person who takes care of your feet.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, you need those soles. So he's making those soles for me. They kind of give you a sensation. You know what happens. And
Yes.
then I'm like, yeah, what's the perfect feet? And he says this thing that kind of stuck in my head. It sounded like 15 years ago. Dude, there is no disability. No person is like perfect. Nobody is really healthy.
Yeah.
And I think when we look back, just like the internet, we were kind of working on processing data, uploading pictures to Facebook, and slowly we understand better ourselves and learn that there is no like archetype, like this is the perfect or perfect person. And that I find a very cool learning experience for myself because before you always strive for this perfect and you expect the perfect, good internet on the plane, perfect transaction, everything works always fine. But with all those experiences that I had and now the knowledge that I have from them, it shapes the way I see the world and yeah, it makes me think differently. On the other hand, I always fall into this myself. Like it's the same fallacy. I get too, I'm still missing the word. Like you get very stressed about it or like you're anxious and you want to get it done.
Yeah.
So that's still there. But I think kind of trying to balance out those things with the knowledge that we have now could be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm.
Absolutely. Actually, I'm also using the internet, the browser, with Zoom,
Mm.
110%.
Yeah, exactly.
And the same with my code editor.
Yeah.
I have it zoomed, so everything looks more sharper, more better. Also because I don't want to put a lot of pressure on eyes, since we are sitting in front of the monitor for a whole day.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are using that in certain thing, and hopefully all the websites that I browse on the internet with 110% zoom, they still fit. They don't hide some information that is meaningful and important for me.
Mm.
So I'm also kind of person who fits into that group, the group that we should care about
Yeah.
and should serve
Yeah.
as a creators.
Yeah.
Turning back to the user experience of conversational UI, as I initially said, it will take years until we figure out how to make them good for people without any disability, let's say, significant one.
Mhm.
And then it will take a lot of time to figure out how to make it work for people who doesn't hear, for people who cannot read or cannot chat that easy, or some other things that are blocking them to use it with the default settings, let's say.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's evolution, it's time. And the thing is, it's on us, on creators, people who do it, they can take and think about this.
Yeah.
Because businesses normally will not.
Hmm.
Businesses thinks about revenue,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And for business, it's important that you ship a certain feature so they can experiment it on the customer, whether it brings some more leads, money, certain financial impact on the organization.
Yeah.
And obviously, making things accessible is not that brings you profit. Maybe for a minor amount of businesses it could be, but for 99% it's not. Therefore, businesses will tell like, what for to put this effort in,
Yeah.
you
Mm.
know? And that comes to you.
Mhm.
You.
Yeah.
You are hired to do a good professional job. So what it is, what do you define as an outcome of your job?
Mhm. Mhm.
Do you consider when you design a new UI for a mobile app for a client,
Mhm.
different people that will be using that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even the people who will be their target audience, obviously, but out of these target audiences will be people who cannot recognize the colors well.
Yeah.
Do you consider this, that the color density shall be correctly set up so information is accessible?
Mhm. Mhm.
Business will never tell you to do this.
Mhm.
That's on you, Marius, to deliver that, to
Yeah.
think about this when you draft your Figma file.
Mhm. Yeah. I would even
And
argue.
that's on
Mm.
me, and that's on me to deliver this when I write the next piece of code.
Yeah.
So things works for different people. So the payment go through. So you could really transfer the money.
Exactly. Yeah.
If I'm building a chat,
Mhm.
so it's on me to make sure that the message from a kid to his mom is delivered always, because it might be his last message in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we could obviously always argue that businesses doesn't allow us to spend more time on testing, on quality assurance, on building better internet.
Yeah.
But I disagree.
Yeah. Mhm.
I kind of say, yeah, they have impact. They pay us the salary and so.
Mhm.
But we could put a bit more effort. I'm not saying like spending days, hours, and so, like trying to incorporate in our daily development or design routine to consider these small things. So you incorporate them right in, you build a certain payment form, so you know the payment form, how to make it accessible. So you add certain code pieces so the computer can properly interpret it for people with disabilities.
Mhm.
And these things, so these could become a part of your normal work only if you want it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And this will create a huge impact on the consumers that will use the software or designs that you produce.
Yeah. Totally. It's totally true, and I think I agree in most parts totally. And I would even argue that for the business, this is a good thing. Why is it a good thing? Because if you say all the things you considered now, let's say previously you shopped something before Amazon came along, then this experience was not developed. The technology was not there. Maybe people had not the experience in the design development teams. Somebody came
Yeah.
up with this one shop button. All the other shops copy it. This is great. It's much more
Yes.
accessible. Also for the business, it's great because they can sell more. And I think this is a really important topic for when you do creative work or development, all kinds of production, to train that skill set. Because if I talk to somebody about the work that we do, it's not so easy to explain, right? Like you say, we build apps or we do things that live on the screen, but what does it mean? And then people see those nerds who sit there and do the coding and do the screens and pixels. But now the skill
Right.
set is so much broader. And I think with the skills that you have and the time, those AI tools are great because they give you more time to think about this, exactly what we just talked about. And this is so nice because if I look now at Shopify, for example, it's really unifying online shops a lot. So it's super easy to buy something. It's much more accessible. I, for example,
Mm-hmm.
bought most of the Christmas presents now for my family and clients through Shopify shops because it's easy. You can really one-click checkout, even though it's different shops. So from the business side, this is also good. But talking about this getting these arguments. It takes a long time, lots of resources. So companies who are in charge would say, okay, what's really the benefit? But if you look at it that way, and of course, maybe your boss or your team lead will not see this immediately because they might say, okay, let's not spend another 3 days, like you said, on improving the contrast of the button. Yes. But if in the end you come up with something like a one-click checkout, or you come up with now bank transfer made through your phone AirPods in 2 minutes, people will love this, like, then the business will also say, okay, yes, this is good. We can also make more profit from this. But that's a long journey. And of course, nobody can always say that out loud. You will have to take your time, learn, and put in that effort. But I totally agree that it's up to us to build that stuff. Yeah.
Totally. I think what you just said about learning and things, it of course has an investment you have to make. It's not for granted. It's not natural for us to understand how to serve this experience. It's not natural for developers to figure out what should be the effective type of automation tests for their software.
Yes.
The same for designers, I suppose. Yeah. And this requires you to learn, to constantly learn and have a willing to get better than you were yesterday.
Yes. Yeah.
Because while you are learning, you could start incorporating this knowledge in your daily work right away.
Totally.
Look, if we look at how cities are built, in Soviet Union, where I came from initially, many cities are built without considering people with disabilities.
Yeah.
Okay. This means that if you politically decided at a certain point to build a city like that, then it will be very expensive afterwards to fix it.
Yes. Yeah.
But if you are like Germans, incorporated that right away in building and growing your cities, then it's way less expensive and hard because you are putting a bit by bit right when you are building, So fixing the experience afterwards, is way more expensive and hard than training yourself every day how to deliver good work, good outcomes, and incorporated your knowledge into your daily routine. So it will create an impact like Germans build their cities.
Yeah, totally nice. I think it's a good note to end it. I totally agree. You see more people in a city like this, disabled people can go out, you see them, they can join, they have a good time. And I think in a digital world, it's even easier because you don't have to build something, tear it down. We can just make a new version, new update, and add the things. Of course, if you think about it earlier, easier, but up to us to learn and really develop those learning skills. It's not that you learn this in university, it has to stay like this, but you constantly learn and also apply.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. Great. Thank you very much for talking to you today, Marius.
Thank you, Nick. It was a good conversation.